staff to tend to me and the house, because there is so much I cannot do anymore. Every morning, one of my attendants wakes me up and brings me my breakfast and my medication. So many pills that I have to take, but they do seem to help. Sometimes I can sit up in my bed and feed myself, though my hands shake terribly and my muscles are so stiff. Other times, my attendant must sit with me and feed me like I am an infant. It used to be embarrassing when I first started needing so much extra help, but I have become accustomed to it. I'm grateful for my attendants and everything they do for me. After breakfast, the children usually come visit me in my room, my beautiful angels, all with their halos of golden curls and their sparkling blue eyes. They run about the room, laughing and playing chase, jumping on my bed and leaping to the floor. I never caution them or tell them to stop, because it warms my heart to see them having so much fun. I have 3 babies, and they will always be my babies no matter how much time passes. My oldest, Jocelyn, is 8. She is starting to look so much like me, I think, with her sharp, pointed nose and her delicate brows, always furrowed in thought. Her cheeks are starting to lose the chubbiness of childhood, and my heart aches to see her growing up so fast. Simon is my middle child and my only boy, and what a boy he is. Wild, unbothered by the rules my husband and I tried to enforce so many times over the years. He has my full pouty lips, and I can tell that when he is older, he will have his father's strong brow and jawline, and he's only 6 years old. He looks to me like a Greek carving out of marble, with the hard lines of his bone structure that are still so softened by the babyishness of his features. But even he looks so grown up to me now. My youngest is Eveline, and she is only 3. She has such a sweet, cherubic little face, with her impossibly long eyelashes and her rosy, chubby cheeks. She cannot run as fast or jump as high as her siblings, but she tags along as quickly as her little legs will carry her. She still cuddles with me the most, curling up next to me in my arms when I take my naps before lunch. The sweet smell of her hair fills my nose and sends me off to sleep so peacefully. When the children aren't tearing around my room like whirling dervishes, they often go out to play in the garden. Jocelyn and Simon are always so gentle with Eveline, and always make sure to wait for her to catch up. I'm so lucky to have such sweet babies who love each other so much. I used to be able to join them in the garden before I got sick, and sometimes it makes me sad that I'm stuck inside, in my room. I have a rotating cast of attendants who stay with me each day. Understandably so, since I imagine that they all have families to get home to once their shifts caring for me are done. My husband has insisted I have care around the clock, so I have 3 different attendants each day for each shift: morning, evening, and overnight. My attendants help me shower every morning and help me get dressed each day. It means so much to be able to wear clean, fresh clothes every day and not rot away in bed, wearing the same gown for days on end. Tiffany, who is one of my favourites, will brush out my long hair and do it up in a lovely French braid for me. I only see her twice a week though, and the other attendants don't seem to want to bother with my hair. It can become quite tangled by the time Tiffany comes again, and she will spend so much time patiently and gently teasing the knots from my hair. Sometimes she'll murmur as she combs and braids, "Miss Margaret, where are those beautiful babies of yours?" I always tell her they must be elsewhere in the house, perhaps playing with their dollhouse or sprawled in the playroom reading books. Tiffany always clicks her tongue and doesn't say anything to that. Of course, in addition to my attendants, I have my doctors. Dr. Phillips is a tall, thin man with greying hair cropped close and big, thick frame questions. Sometimes I do answer her questions, and she gives me a peculiar look and jots things down in her notebook. I don't know what she does with that notebook after she leaves my room, but I think I'd like to read it someday. Everyone who cares for me wears a uniform. I guess it is mandatory for the agency that my husband hired them from. The only person who comes to see me who never wears a uniform is my friend Alison. Alison always brings a dog, Fig, who is a huge, auburn-coloured golden retriever. The first time I met Alison and Fig, I could tell Alison was a little apprehensive. She held Fig's leash tightly in her fist, though you wouldn't guess it from how the leash dangled with plenty of slack. But I noticed these things. Alison said something under her breath to one of my attendants as Fig approached me in my chair. The dog walked right up to me and placed her giant, blocky head right in my lap, looking up at me with her soft brown eyes. I lifted a hand and gently patted her head, and then scratched behind her ears, and she closed her eyes and let the full weight of her head settle against my leg. I saw Alison's grip on the leash relax, and I heard her quietly mutter, "Figgy is a great judge of character," to my attendant, who shrugged his shoulders and then looked away, almost irritated. After that first meeting, Alison has brought Fig to visit me every week. If I'm in bed, Fig will jump up and lie beside me, warming me with her silken auburn fur. Alison will always pull up a chair and sit next to me, and she always makes small talk about the weather, or tells me a funny story about what Figgy has gotten up to since the last time we met. Alison even reaches out and holds my hand sometimes, and gives me a knowing look. She once asked me why I'm sick, and I told her it was better for both of us if she didn't know. But that didn't scare her away. One day, that same attendant, who was there during my first meeting with Alison and Fig, pulled up a chair rather closer to me and Alison than he normally would, and opened up a newspaper to read. The big headline on the front read, "Father of children missing for 3 years petitions to have them officially declared dead." A sad story, to be sure. A picture of the father with his children, all beaming at the camera, took up most of the front page. My husband has to travel so much for work that he is rarely able to visit with me. When he does, he often meets with my doctors and they discuss things in hushed tones. I catch snippets as they speak. No progress, no new information, different medication. My husband has control over my treatment because my illness often makes me too tired and disoriented to be able to consent to any changes. My husband has learned only to come visit me before 5 p.m. because there have been 1 too many visits after dinner when he had come into my room to see me, and something awful has come over me and I have attacked him, lunged out of my bed or my wheelchair with my hands outstretched, clawing for his throat and eyes as my attendant springs into action to restrain me. Whenever this has happened, my husband refuses to meet my eyes with his, afraid to look at me and acknowledge the real reason why I want to kill him, a reason only he and I will ever know. You see, my morning medications really start to wear off after dinner, and I can't have my evening doses until 7 p.m. As the afternoon turns to evening, I feel my symptoms start to come back. My vision, blurry and unfocused during the day, becomes sharper. The golden light that bathes everything darkens and becomes cold and blue, throwing everything into harsh relief and making my surroundings feel unwelcoming and clinical. My head, so foggy and sluggish all day, begins to clear, and my memories start to come back. I see my attendants for what they really are, employees begrudgingly tasked with watching over me, rather than dedicated and compassionate caregivers. The worst, though, is my children. When they come to visit me after dinner, they no longer look happy and angelic and full of life and laughter. They no longer look the way I want to remember them. Instead, they look the way I'm forced to remember them. Jocelyn's scalp is half ripped away from her skull, and her left eye is missing. Blood stains her nose and mouth, and she has a thick purple bruising around her neck. Her head hangs at an odd angle, and her legs can only shuffle her forward as she tries to walk on compound fractures, with shards of bone piercing her skin. The entire left side of Simon's head has been completely caved in, and he spits and sputters bubbles of blood as he struggles to draw in raggedy breaths. His ribcage is crushed and splintered, and his lungs flap uselessly against his chest wall. And Eveline, my poor, sweet baby girl, too young to even understand what was happening to her. Her eyes are black, filled completely with dead blood. Her tongue is huge and purple and protrudes from her mouth. She too bears thick bruising around her neck, although this is barely noticeable due to the fact that she now carries her head in her tiny little hands because it was ripped completely. From her shoulders, they all come to me and stare at me, crying, "Why, Mama?" It used to drive me mad at first, and more often than not when they showed up to haunt me, I would claw so deeply at my arms as I screamed in anguish that I ended up bound to my bed in padded restraints while a nurse administered an injection to put me to sleep. Now I just cry silently. I don't look away, because my babies deserve to be seen, but my heart shatters into a million pieces over and over again every night when they come to remind me of what I've done. A trucker found me on the side of the highway 3 years ago, covered in blood, some of it mine, some of it not. At the emergency room, they tried to get me to tell them what happened to me, but I couldn't. All I could do was scream as I pictured my babies the way I left them before I escaped into the woods. I think I hoped to get lost and die of exposure out there, but instead I stumbled out onto the roadway and nearly got hit by a truck. Dying that way would have been better than I deserved. When the police showed up to question me, the emergency room staff were confused, but then the detective explained. My husband had reported the children and me missing that morning after waking up to find the house empty. He told the police that I hadn't been well lately, hadn't been taking my medications, and he was worried that I may have harmed the children. The police knew as much when they saw me on that gurney, covered in my children's blood, and I couldn't speak to tell them what had happened. They finally sedated me to get me to stop screaming, and when I woke up I was handcuffed to the bed rail, and a cop sat in the corner of my room, staring me down. They took me to court, but I was found to be incompetent to stand trial. The state psychologist who examined me determined that I had entered a catatonic state, and that, in my stupor, I was incapable of understanding the charges being brought against me. And that's how I ended up here at Willow Grove, the highest security forensic psychiatric hospital in the state, imprisoned amongst others, deemed incompetent to stand trial, like me, or those who are found not criminally responsible, which is the technical term for not guilty by reason of insanity. And here I've stayed for the past 3 years, under a constant fog of antipsychotic